Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. There are many different ways in games you receive quests, from the game just allocating them to you one after another mission, from having a mission select screen, to talking to an NPC. In the game we currently have, we talk to NPCs and we receive quests. But other RPG games like Skyrim and Witcher, they give you actual boards, like notice boards, where you can just walk up and you can pick a quest at your own choosing. They're often optional quests, you don't really have a main quest there, but it still adds to the lore of the story, where a random NPC can walk up in the lore, they'll pin a notice to the board saying, hey, I need 3 chickens or something, and anybody can go and pick it up for some cash. So in today's tutorial, we're going to look at making this notice style board where it can have predefined quests put onto the board in different rotations and stuff. We'll sort that out. You can walk up, you can activate the quest. Once you activate it, the notice disappears. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to need is we actually need a quest board of kind. So I was looking through what assets I actually have, and I found 2 that I think can work really, really well. So if I search for post, I have this kind of fence post thing here, which is perfect for like a signpost, which I thought would work really, really well. And then I haven't actually got a quest board table thing. So what I'm actually going to do is I have a table here with some ruggedy wood on it, and I'm thinking if we chop the legs off, just rotate it, say 90 degrees and position it up, it looks like a quest board, which I figured would be quite cool. You can customize it with how many legs you want and stuff, but first thing we need to do is remove these legs. So what I've done is I've exported the model from Unreal by right clicking and choosing Asset Actions Export, and I've brought it into Blender. I'm just going to switch to edit mode, or just press tab, either way. I'm going to press Alt Z to go into X-ray mode, and I'm just going to come and delete all of these legs pretty much, and I'll choose delete vertices just to remove them. There we go. So if I jump back into object mode and Alt Z to turn off X-ray, you can see, yeah, that's pretty much done the job. Look, and now I'm going to recenter this, so I'm going to press tab into edit, press A, and then I'm just going to grab on the Z axis and I'm just going to move it down just so it's like touching the floor where it should be. Yeah, that'll do. So now it's in the center round about there, and I'm going to tab out, and there's our quest board. Now I'm just going to export this back into Unreal. So I'll come into my content folder, then I will just come into, let's do asset packs. I haven't got a custom one, so I'll create a custom folder, and I will just name this FBX quest board because that works. I'm going to make sure to untick bake animation because we don't actually need any animation on it, and I'm just going to click export. It'll save up, and then Unreal will instantly try to import it, which is perfect. We don't need it to generate collision because we'll handle that ourselves. Build Nana, yeah, sure, why not? It's not got a skeletal mesh, so let's just click it. We're all good. There we go. So if I delete off the table now and just have a quick look at our new board, so asset packs, custom, we have our custom board here. It's got the wrong material on it, which is fine because we can just search for the table and apply the correct material. I'm going to open up the table I want, find the material, that one, and then come back to my board. I can just tap it and press the allocate material. There we go. So that's what our quest board will pretty much look like. But now that we have our mesh for our quest board, we need to start turning it into a blueprint. So I'm actually going to come and delete both of these off, and I'm going to come to my blueprints folder, and inside MISC, I'll right click and I'll do blueprint class. I'll set it to a type of actor, and I'll call it BP underscore quest board. I'll open this up. So the first thing I'll do is I'll come and add a static mesh, which will handle our post, and then inside the static mesh, I can come and search for my post option. Basically just import your static mesh for what you want, and then I will add another static mesh. I'll do it inside of this one, it's not too much of an issue, and I'll call this board, and let's go and add our custom board. We can also allocate the correct material. I'm going to double click on the actual mesh, and I'll just tell it to use the correct material outright, and then when we come back into it, it will be used. So let's drag it up. I'm going to rotate it down 90 degrees, and do I want the flat side or the curved side? I think the curved side looks more interesting, so we'll just drag it out so it's slightly touching it, so if anybody looks from behind it's connected, but from the front it looks all. If we compile and drag it back in, we can just compare it to our scene and know if we have to make any adjustments size-wise. So blueprints, MISC, let's drag it out, quest board. So it's already, let's rotate it around to the right way. I think it definitely needs moving up a little bit to be more head height, because if you look at the size of the character, he's currently almost bigger than the quest board, which isn't right. So I'll move it up so it's just touching it. There we go. Now it looks like a proper quest board. You obviously could do better and get more models and stuff, but for me, I think it's alright. So how do we go about actually adding quests to the board? Because I want to go with the ones like you see in The Witcher or Skyrim, where you have a board and it's got pieces of paper on it, and sometimes they randomize where they are, other times they don't. But there are a few ways you could do this, and it also depends how you want the quest board to work. If you want to just walk up to it in first person and click on the piece of paper to receive the quest, that is one way you can do it. The other way you can do it is you walk up and interact with the actual quest board and you get a UI of the actual quest. I'm going to go with the first option where you walk up, you can look at the piece of paper, and then you can just grab it and it begins the quest kind of thing. Nice and simple. And if you want to expand it, you can. So I want to make this quest board be able to have a variety of quests slotted all around it, basically. So what I'm going to do is inside this board object, I'm first going to come and remove both collision from the post and the board because they don't need collision. Add that artificially from a trigger, from another box collision. So I'm going to remove it all. I'm also going to come and remove nav mesh from it because we don't need the individual post making the nav mesh. We want the entire thing to make a nav mesh. And then just after I've done this, I'm going to add my box collision into it. I'll just make it at the same level. And then we can drag it out, and then we can make this actually do the nav mesh and the collision, which means NPCs will avoid the full thing on the floor. Now this is the part where we start adding the actual posters to the quest board to say that you can start the quest. But there's two ways we can go around doing this now. Now, depending on the type of game you play, some of the games will be you have to specifically look at the correct piece of paper in order to pick that quest up. You'll read that piece of paper, you'll put it down. More often used in like detective games and stuff like that. The other option is what most RPGs do, is where you can interact with the entire sign and it will show you some UI where you pick the actual missions on it. It shows you the details, you click accept. So there's two ways we can do it. We are going to do both, but I'm going to start with the actual clicking of the actual papers first. So what I'm going to do is we want the papers on this signboard here to show and hide when they've got a quest, which is fine. But then when you interact with it, the piece of paper, you just instantly receive that quest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my Blueprints MISC folder again, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to do Blueprint class. I'm going to choose type actor, and I'm going to call it BP quest board quest paper. I'm going to open this up. So all this is going to be is basically how you want the quest to look on the board. So I'm going to come and add just a standard plane for now, and then I'll make sure I rotate it upwards a little bit. And pieces of papers aren't normally square, they're more rectangular. So yeah, something like that. Ian Hubert on YouTube for Blender has got a tutorial on how to crease paper and make it look more paper-like for posters and stuff. That'd be fantastic. You could add some pins or something, nails. But for mine, I'm just going to keep a plain white paper just for now. So for mine, I need a way that when you interact with this piece of paper, that it gives you the quest it's got. Otherwise, we can hide the paper away. So first thing I'm going to actually do is just turn off nav mesh because we don't actually need it active. But I'm going to make sure to keep the collision on because we need a way to actually interact this one. So depending what interaction system you have, you will go around this next bit ever so slightly subtly different. But in the end goal is we need to interact with this piece of paper. That's it. So if you've watched my getting started tutorial where we added our own interaction system, you just need to add the interface to this and then call the correct function inside here to interact with it. If you've got narrative interaction, that's what we're going to be using. You'll do that slightly differently. It's just really however you've got some. So for narrative interaction, we need a narrative interactive component to actually do the work on this instead of doing it inside here, which is fine. So I'm going to come down to my narrative interactions folder. I'll right click Blueprint class and I'll create a new narrative interactable component and I'll click select and I'll call it interactable quest board quest. There we go. And I'll open that up. So I'll delete the begin play and the event tick off because we don't want that. I'm going to override the function on interact and then we just need to begin the quest. So I'm going to add a variable here of quest, and this is where it also divulges a little bit differently. For whatever quest system you have, whether you've got ACF's quest system, Easy Quest, you've made your own narrative quests, you basically need to store a reference to the quest so you can start it from this interaction event. So for me, I'm using narrative, so I'm going to use the type of quest, and I will use quest class and I'm going to set mine to a soft class reference like so it's not loaded in memory permanently, only as and when we need it. Then I'm going to drag this quest down here. I'll drag off and I'll do async load class asset and I'll plug it in up here, and this will actually tell the quest to load into memory at this point. And then from here we can right click and do get narrative component, and I can do begin. I can plug it into the completed node because you don't want it on the other one. And then this class here, I'm just simply going to drag from the quest here over to here and it will automatically convert it over like that. But because it's after the load, it will load it first, then convert the loaded asset and begin the quest. After this, we need to tell the piece of paper it's done because we no longer have a quest there. All I'm going to do is right click and do get owner, and now we need a way to tell the piece of paper that we've just picked up this quest. And then from here I'm simply going to do set actor hidden in game, and I'll just plug it up to here like so. So as soon as we pick it up, it will hide the actor we've done with it. Now if we go back to my quest paper, I can add my new interactable to it. So I'll do quest board quest, and then it'll give us a few options. So what do we want to call it? So the action name I will just call begin quest, and we have to interact with it to begin it, which is perfect. The quest, I don't actually have any quick quests at the moment, so just for test, quest, I'll add the Mountain Bandits quest. So we can actually test this very basically at the moment. So let's just rotate this back like so. If I just drag one of these quest papers out, so it's definitely a little bit large, but that's fine. If I just drop that there and come and interact with it now, we should see that the interaction script is allowing us to pick up that specific piece of paper. You'll see now, as the computer's lagging because it's rebuilding shaders, I should be able to walk up to here and it says begin quest because we're on the paper. If I press E, it disappears like so. You can still see it started the quest, which is perfect, but it's still saying I need to begin with it because even though it's hidden, it's just invisible. We actually need to tell it get rid of the collision as well, deactivate it. We don't need it anymore. So what I'm actually going to do is just come and destroy it simply. So from here, instead of set actor, I'll just get owner and I'll simply call destroy actor and I'll plug it in like so. So as soon as we interact with this and gather its quest, it'll just be destroyed. So there are some benefits to destroying it versus keeping it invisible. If you were going to rapidly add quests to it every time you picked up, another quest is added immediately, I would definitely look at just simply making it invisible and disabling collision instead, because if you're going to be turning it on and off that often, it's probably better. But there you go, it's now disappeared and we can't do anything with it. However, in my case, you'll pick a quest up, it might be 2-3 hours later, for example, 2-3 missions, you never know, and then another one might appear, depending what choices you made. For me, I think one destroy and one creation, instead of holding it in memory, is a lot better. So that's what we're going to do now. Now that we've got our paper working, where we can actually pick the quest up, all we need to do is put this actually on the signpost in specific locations when we tell the signpost to add a new quest. So I'm going to come back to my quest board here, and I'm going to come into the board and I'm going to add an arrow. And this arrow is going to be used as a targeting point for us to basically tell us later where to spawn a quest. If you think of games like The Witcher or Skyrim, where you have quest boards, they're kind of dotted in random locations. Now we could write some code to generate this random location, but trying to imagine a local vector is going to be quite difficult. Whereas an arrow, simply saying it's going to be here, it is absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to basically make a couple of copy of these arrows and put them in all sorts of random locations. I'll probably rotate them a little bit just to vary it up. You don't want to rotate it too much, otherwise it's going to look a bit weird. It can even be overlapping a little bit if you want. There we go. So this signpost is going to accept 5 quests and they're going to be dotted where those arrows are. You could probably make your own gizmo just to show it a bit easier, but now I'm just going to stick to it. But what I will do, just while we're here, is I'll just make the arrows look a little bit less daunting. So I'll come and set the arrow length to something like 10, just so it's really on the board. These are the dots where it's going to be. And I'll even increase the arrow size just a little bit, just so you can see this is pretty much where it's going to line up, where the roots are of these here. Yeah, so those little dots are where we'll spawn the papers. So now that we've done this, we need a way on the quest board to actually say, now add an arrow to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my interfaces folder. I'm going to right click blueprint interface. I'm going to call it BPI underscore quest. And we're using an interface so we don't have to cast to the quest board anytime we want to use it. And I'm going to call add quest. So I'll set the input to be a quest and it'll be the type of quest from your whatever quest class you're using and make it a soft reference again so it's not loading it in memory like so. And I'll compile and save. The only other thing I am going to do is I'm going to add another function here called take quest and I'll pass an input of the paper and this will be our type of quest board quest paper. And what this is going to do is as we call add quest, we're going to spawn papers on all of these nodes here. We can do it randomly, we can do it in order either way we want to. And then as we go up to the paper and take the quest on the interactable, before calling destroy, we're going to tell the board we've taken the quest and we're going to say from this paper. And then what this board can handle is finding that piece of paper and removing it from memory. So then that slot becomes open so we can add more quests to it later. So it could be you pick up this one here. Once you complete it, it wants to add it again. And then we destroy this one and just add it in the same place kind of thing. So in my quest board, I'm now going to add the interface to it. So I'll go to class settings, implementing interfaces, and I'll call it BPI quest board. And then we'll start off with the add quest board. So I'll double click that one. So we basically now need to find with all of these arrows to pick which one we want to use. But we need one which doesn't have a quest already assigned to it, a piece of paper, because we don't want to overlap the pieces of paper on top of each other. That'll be a little bit of a glitch. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come up to event begin play and I'm going to drag off the board here and I'm going to drag off of this and do get children. And this is going to get us all the components within that board, which is all of our arrow location. I'm going to drag off from the children here and do a for each loop. And I'm going to promote all of these to a variable so we can store an array amount of different arrows where we can say these are the quest locations for this board. I'm going to come and create a variable down here called quest papers. I'm going to set the type to be arrow component object reference, which is fine because it's already loaded in memory because it's already on the component. But what I am going to do is I'm actually going to come and tick map and I'm going to set the value to be the type of our quest board paper and it will be an object reference as well. So the reason we're using object references for this one is we can say give us a free arrow component which doesn't have a quest paper assigned against it and that's where we'll spawn it, and then when we take it we can simply search down down all of these arrows, checking the paper, saying, have you got this paper we're trying to take? And if we have, then we can remove it and clear it off. The reason we're using a map is a map's very, very good when you want a key and a value. So a key is something that's unique. A value can be duplicated. In this case, we've got a set of unique arrows or quest paper locations, and we can search this map and say, give us the corresponding quest. Very easy. So now to populate this array, this map we've got, I'm just going to drag the quest papers off, drag up, and I'm just going to do add, like so. I'll plug it into the quest body. Oh, and one slight mistake I've made. You can see this is a scene component, and we're trying to plug it in, but we can't because we've done an arrow component. So instead of an arrow component, let's just change it to a scene component, like so. Same object reference again. It'll say change it. That's fine. Just ignore it. Then we'll delete the add. We'll add again, but this time without casting, we can just drag the array element straight in, and it will all still work the same. The arrows are just there superficially to help us guide it. And from an artist's perspective, are you going to prefer local vectors or are you going to prefer little dots where you can see it? And if you add a gizmo to it, you can make it even nicer. Perfect. So that will now populate our quest papers array here. But when we add a quest, we actually need to spawn the quest paper. So depending on how you want the quest board to work, depends on your next. So I want the quest board, when you say add a new quest to it, to randomly pick a location. So if you play the game 3-4 times, it's not always going to be at slot 1. You might want it to always be at slot 1. I'm going to randomly change it around, so it might be slot 3, it might be slot 5, somewhere else. If you want it to just simply be, keep watching and I'll show you in a moment how you do it in order. We need to do roughly the same thing, but for when we're randomizing it instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my functions here, and I'm going to add a new function called get random quest location. And inside here, I'm going to drag in the quest papers, and I'm going to get the keys from it. I'm going to connect it up here. I'm then going to promote this array to a local variable called random quest locations. And we're doing a local variable because then that means it only exists inside this function. Once this function ends, it's wiped from memory, being more efficient. From here, I'm just going to drag off and call shuffle. And all this is going to do is basically randomize the events, the items inside this array. So if we add it to here and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the shuffle will make it go 3, 2, 5, 2, 1 kind of thing. Randomize it up nice and easily for us. Now what we can do from here is we can drag our random quest locations out. And this is the part where if you want it in order, then you don't need to do this shuffle part here. You simply just drag off the quests. Then you drag off and do for each. So we're looping over all of the keys. Then we'll drag the random quest locations in again. Then this time we're going to drag the quest papers in because this has got the values. What we need to check, has it got a quest? I'm going to drag off and I'm going to do find. So we have a series of locks. We have our keys. We know what keys we are. The find function finds the lock it belongs to, or in our case, the value. I'm going to connect the array element to it to say find us the lock or the value for this key. And then we're going to drag off of this object reference here and do an is valid check with the question mark like so. And this is the important part. Because we're looping through all the keys must exist in the array and have a value. The value could be null or empty, and that's fine because that's what we want. And the is valid check is the one what checks the validity of it, whether it's null or not. If it's valid, it means it's got a quest, so we ignore it. We don't want to pick that item. However, if it's not valid, it means it's not been given a quest paper yet, so we can safely assign a value to it. And because we've already shuffled it, or even if you haven't shuffled it, you're doing it in order, this will loop through. 1, come through, 1's already got it. 2, it'll come back through again. 2's already got it, but 3, it's not valid. Or in our case, it shuffles it, any random order it will find it. Is not valid means we've now received a random quest location. So from this is not valid, I'm going to drag off and do return. And on this return node, I'm going to add an output here, and I will call it quest location. And I'm going to set it to a type of scene component, just like we did for the actual key. It will return the key. And I'm going to drag the key down here, and I will just drag the array element into the quest location node. So the is valid will just leave permanently empty. That's fine. However, if it gets to the completed, it means it's not found a quest location. So we might be trying to add a quest to a board with no free slot. So there are some fixes you can do for this. You could simply just say you can't add a quest here. That's simple. We could also store a backlog of these quests. So as quests add in, it fills up an array. And then the next time we complete an array, we check if we've got any backlog items to add and we just instantly add it. But that might look a bit weird if the player walks up, they take a piece of paper and another one immediately appears in front of them. So I'm just going to opt for, we simply just do a return node with nothing in it. Then we'll check the quest location, make sure it's valid. If you want the other way, where when you take a quest, if there's a quest backlog, it adds it to it, go for it and just add an array down here. And then when you call add quest, you simply add it to that array instead. Now that we've got a get random location, let's drag it in up here. Now, let's say give us a random location. We'll drag off this quest location and just do an is valid in case we don't have one. If it's not valid, we're just going to print out just an error saying quest board is full, because that's a developer thing. If developers are trying to fill a quest board up before the quest board's been done, you really should go off and pick a different. And then if it is valid, then this is where we can actually spawn our quest paper. I'm going to drag up here. I'm going to do spawn actor, and then I'm going to set the class to be our quest board quest paper, like so. I'm going to move this one just under here so we've got some nice room. The collision handling mode, I'm just going to set to always spawn because we do want the paper to always spawn. The spawn transform, I'm going to right click and do split struct pin, like so. And I'm going to drag from our quest location and do get world location, and I'm going to plug it into here. I'll also drag off and do get world rotation. So this, it will get the slight rotations we've added to it, and I'll plug that into the rotation. The spawn will keep at 111. And then the only other thing we have to do is using this quest location here, we need to find it on the quest papers and actually populate it. I'm going to drag off of this set quest papers, and I'm going to do add, like so. I'm going to connect it up to here. The add will take care of updating it. So I'm going to drag the quest location into our quest location here, and the return value, which is our quest paper, into there. We may go back through and change this into a function later, just so we're not dragging it off so many times, but we'll look at that later. And that's pretty much the gist of it. So if we show this quest papers here and click compile, at the moment we've got no way to actually add a quest to here, and we're not actually using the take quest either. So let's do a very quick basic test event that we can use, and we'll add it to something properly later. I'm going to delete this test quest here because we don't need that anymore. And I'm going to come and find my player super just for a test, and then right at the bottom I just add a debug key here, and I'll do I will do get all actors of class, and I will find our quest board. I will drag off of this and do for each one, even though we've only got one. And now we can actually use our interface here. I'll do add quest, and you'll see in our BPI quest board we have the quest message, which is the one we want. We'll connect it up. It'll say you need a soft reference to a class, so I'll do mountain bandit. We'll hit compile and save. So now you'll see we have no quests on the board. The variable at the moment will be empty because event begin play hasn't run. So let's play it. First thing we should see is that map should be populated with our 5 arrow locations, which is perfect. Then, as we click the U key, one of them will be added a quest paper, which is then when we can walk up, we can take that quest paper, and then we can go from there. You can see my shaders are compiling it again, but the quest board has got nothing on it, as you can see. I can either walk through it, because I don't think I've set my collisions up properly, which is fine. I press the F8 key to break out. I can click on the quest board, and you can see we've got 5 map items, just like I said. Here's all the arrows, but nothing in them. If I click play back into the game, and if I press the U key, you will see the paper will spawn and it should show in the map. Okay, so we've had some interesting results. So the paper has spawned indeed, as you can see, and I can interact with it. I can see it, but I can't, it's not actually the right rotation. So that's something we can solve. If I press E now, you'll see it has indeed picked the quest up, but it's not disappeared from our map. So we just need to look at doing that now. So far, really good progress. We've got a good result going on. So first things first, it wasn't the right direction. So what I'm going to do, just for ease sake, is I'm going to come and click my paper. I'm simply just going to rotate it 90 degrees, like so. And that should fix it in most cases, but just to double check as well, I am also going to take this quest board over here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees as well, just so we can see it from 2 different angles to make sure the rotation fix does work. And then the only other thing is when we interact with it here, we need to tell our quest board we've just picked this up. So we don't at the moment have a way to link our paper back to the board. The paper links to the board. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to create a variable on this quest paper here called owning board, and I'm simply going to set it to a type of BPI quest board. Just that's, we can just use our interface, then it's not loading the entire board in memory. And we can hit compile and save. And then after we spawn the paper here, just before we add it, we can just simply drag off and call set owning board, like so. Connect it up here. We will definitely convert this to a function in a moment. Drag off with this owning board, and I'm simply going to say slice. So now that we've done this, the quest paper knows which board it belongs to. And now that it knows which board it belongs to, it means from our interactable here, instead of destroying it here, we can simply drag off this. As you can see, we can't do get owning board because this owner is just a generic actor at the moment, which is fine. So what we're going to do, instead of casting this interactable to this quest board here, we're just going to create another dead quick interface. I'm going to come up to my interfaces folder. I'll right click blueprint interface, and I'll call it BPI quest board paper, and I'll open it up, and I will set this to get owning board. It'll simply output the board, and there'll be a type of BPI quest board, like so. Make sure you don't click get quest board paper, because that will mess up. Back on our quest paper, we can simply go class settings, interface, BPI quest paper. We can double click the get owning board, drag the owning board variable in, and connect. And now it's nicely abstracted away from each other, so if it can't find it, it just won't do anything. And then from the get owner, we can simply do get owning board, like so. And then from the owning board here, we can simply drag off and do take quest, because we've picked a quest up from it earlier. The paper it's asking for, we can't actually connect over here. So let's just add another interface to do it for us. Handle the conversion if you wish. So instead of get owning board, I will simply click off and do get owning get paper quest, and this will output the paper quest. And on the boolean here, it will simply return our BP quest board paper like so. They compile and save back to our BP quest board, implement the get paper quest, simply drag off and just do sell. Compile and save. And now back on our interactable one here, we can just drag off the get owner and do get paper quest. We can plug it in just before this into the paper quest like that. There we go. So we're coming back in when we begin the quest. We're getting the owner. We're getting the owning board of this paper quest. We're then getting an instance of the paper quest, so we don't have to cast to anything, making it very memory efficient. And then we're simply telling the board we've took the quest. Now that only other job we have to do is implement the take quest. So back on the board, let's come and double click take quest like so. So what do we need to do? Firstly, we need to remove it from the map. So I'm going to come down to quest papers down here, drag up. So from this quest papers, I'm going to drag off and get all the keys like so, because we need to do a reverse search. So unlike where we're looking for the keys to find the value, which is the paper, we're doing it reversing this time. We've got the paper, we need to find the correct key. So we're looping over all of the keys here, and then from the quest papers, I'll just drag off and do find. I will plug in the value, the key here, and then I will simply drag off this quest paper and do equals and connect it to the paper here. So if the paper is found on this specific key, then all we're simply going to do is copy quest papers over here, drag a add, just like we did when we added the quest. The quest key that we're looking at is this one here, and the paper is going to be nothing because we've destroyed it. And after we've done all of that, we can simply drag off of this paper and do destroy actor, and we can connect it in up here like so. Now we can hit compile and save. And now if we try it this time, both boards should receive the quest when we press U, which is fine, but we should be able to pick the quest up twice, but narrative won't let us, we'll only pick it up once. But we should be able to see the paper disappear, which is the key part. So you can see both quest boards are empty. I'm going to press Shift F1 and just find one, just so we can see it in the inspector. Okay, so you can see we've got the 5 arrows. We can click on the other one, we've also got the 5 arrows, which is perfect. So if I press the U key, boom, they've both got quests in random locations. Perfect, it's even slightly rotated, and you can see the rotation fix absolutely has worked. I can come up and I can begin the quest on that one. Perfect. I can also begin the quest on that one. Perfect. And you can see on the map, it is now empty. If I press U again, it will add them back in multiple places. You can see I can even stack it up like that. Add some textures, resize it, you've pretty much got a solid working quest board now. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? You could even customize these, put some text renders on it to actually render the text on it, put a custom texture if you have one. The world's your oyster on that. And all you need to do is get the quest board that you want and simply call add quest to add to it. So let's do a little test then. We will say, when you talk to this guard here, let's get his dialogue. And I'm using narrative dialogue, but you can do this in any decent dialogue system should let you do stuff like this. And I will say, if you tell him to follow you, we will tell the quest board to have a quest on it to say, you need to return the guard. That sounds pretty funky. Let's do that. For those who aren't using narrative, all you need to do is when this node activates, or whenever your node activates, is you need to get hold of the quest board that you want to add it to. So you can use tags or anything like that, and then call the interface add quest. That's all you need to do. In narrative's case, we add an event. So I will go right click narrative event, and I will call it any add quest to quest board. I'll open it up. I'll override the function execute event like so, and then I will drag off of this and do get all actors with tag. We don't really care about the class because we'll be using an interface. The tag I will promote to a variable. That'll be the name of the board, so I'll call it tag on quest board. The out actors, I'll loop over them all in case you want to add it to multiple quest boards. And then from here, we can simply call add quest to the BPI quest board like so. If the quest the actor it finds doesn't have the add quest interface, it just won't do anything. I'll plug this into completed and tick it. The quest we want to add, I will promote to a variable called quest add. Now you can go through and rename a bunch of stuff if you want. I'm not going to do any of it just for time's sake because I'm aware the tutorial is getting very long. But it now means on this dialogue here, we can come and add another event to this dialogue, and I will say add quest to quest board. And in this case, I'll set it at the end. The tag of the quest board, but I'll just call it quest board 1 for now. The quest to add, we will say, we'll just do mountain bandits again. I'll compile and save. And then the important thing is I will make sure that I tag my quest board accordingly. So let's do the paper-based quest board. I'll add a tag like so. Now if we compile and save it and run it, there is a real world example now where you can talk to an NPC, and whether the player that knows it or not, a notice will appear on the board. And you can do this any way you want. If you've got dynamic ultra sky and it changes weather, you can add the board. So I'll talk to the guard. Hey, I need your help, follow me. And you'll see a quest has now been added. How cool is that? You can come up, you can interact with it. It says mountain bandits for now. It could easily say, hey, return the guard, stop stealing my guard, something like that. And then you get a reward for taking that. You can also customize this further if you really wanted to and turn it from a quest board to a notice board where where if you click on certain things, it will simply give you some text, either way you want to. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There is the quest board, a real example of ways you can customize your game after you complete a quest, after you talk to somebody, after you kill an enemy, after you loot a chest, after the time changes, after you sleep. You can customize these boards and place them all around your world to get specific ones. Give them a unique ID and you can dot it from the other end of the world and the player wouldn't even know, but it'll be so cool when they return back to it. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. How cool is that? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Decryption and I will see you next time.